fight tough.
What's it like to be a Tomcat pilot in the United States Navy at the sunset of the Tomcat?
Yeah, so we go to the RAG, in 101 in Oceana, and you don't know what you just know you got Tomcats. So we had the A's, B's, and D's.
Oh, really? Wow.
And so they sat us down all in a closed classroom. Remember the RIO, or the guy that was giving the brief, the instructor, Booger Berghoff. Nobody knows what they're going, and there wasn't a wish list. I don't think there was, and then the guys show up and they got the list and they just start handing out Nate tops, and that's when you find out which one you got,
Yeah.
And I really wanted the D because it was the latest and greatest.
Yeah.
Had a lot of cool toys on it, and I lucked out. I got the D. There's two of us, me and Lick McLean was the other guy in my class. Yeah, we were the same squadron too. So there wasn't many D squadrons. They only made 55 of them.
Wow.
So
what was the D? Like what differentiated the D from the other models?
So the D had the big engines, the G 110s, like the B model did. So it had the really big engines, and it had basically the entire avionics suite was completely new. So it was all digital, had the 1553, the data bus. It had a HUD, a Hornet HUD I would call it on steroids. It was far superior.
So it actually was useful. It didn't look like the thing in DCS that I did where I'm looking at it going.
No, that was the A HUD. That thing was. I mean, I never flew the A, but I've seen pictures of it. And you're like,
what is it supposed to be telling me? It's just a bunch of lines.
Yeah. So we had the D HUD it was essentially the same size as a Charlie HUD, but it had a lot more useful information in it, I think. We had two MFDs like a Hornet.
Oh, cool.
Up front, and we had then we had another MFD for like SMS and everything else. So we had pretty, basically like a moving map.
So could you do the radar from the front, or did the trunk monkey have to do it?
That was all in the back. We had hot modes. So we had the radar hot modes we could control, and we also had Erst hot modes that we could control. That was the pilot's radar.
Wow. So what's it like? I mean, I've always been single seat, so I don't necessarily appreciate it as much as others. What's it like? I mean, is it enhancing, degrading, or it just depends?
Flying with somebody else?
Yeah, in the back.
Yeah. I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I mean, I really did. One, it keeps you from doing stupid things. So, because he's got somebody that'll tell him. But, overall, it helped me, because there's a lot going on, and they're doing, and the radar and that thing took a lot of finesse to get it to do what it had to do. And there's no way, in my opinion, a pilot could have done it.
Yeah.
And there's just way too many fine-tuning things that they had to mess around with, to do what they had to do.
Did they do all the bomb dropping too when you did the air-to-ground mission?
They ran the pod. We couldn't control the pod whatsoever, so they had a separate hand control in the back to do all that. We would drop the bombs. We had the pickle button and the master safe and all that stuff.
Same for the missiles too? Did you have to shoot the missiles?
We could, but they also had a button in the back.
Okay, because that's different than the Super Hornet. And the Super Hornet, I think doctrinally, it's all the front seat guys do the.
Yeah, it's all front. Yeah, in the back they could launch missiles. That I mean, that never happened. We would always do it from the front, but they could do it from the back.
So was the Tomcat slicked off? I mean, was it a fun machine to dogfight? I mean, what'd you?
It was. I mean, it's especially those big engines. I mean, the amount of thrust that thing had was pretty incredible. I mean, just the best memories I have of that thing are just straight and level, just lighting the blowers, and there was basically three stages. You may have flew the same engines the F-16.
Zone 5. You got to go Zone 5 and extend.
That's the Prats, and those things were horrible. They killed a lot of people, those stupid engines. But the 110s, you had 3 different phases of the afterburner. You could feel each phase kicking in, and then that last one just boom, it throw you right back in the seat.
That's
and
awesome. Was it? I mean, a heavy cat shot in a Tomcat's got to be awesome.
Yeah, we did a couple. We had your max takeoff was 74,000 pounds, and you were allowed a 76,000 pound cat shot.
Yeah, wow.
And we actually did a couple that were 76 during the war effort because we were carrying so many bombs, and that was a serious kick. You definitely felt the difference between your normal cat shot than you're fully loaded out. But as far as dogfighting it took a lot of finesse to fight that thing.
I've noticed. And I have no finesse in the DCS, so I can't.
I mean, the jet would talk to you quite a bit, but I lucked out because when I showed up, pretty much all the jets had been converted to DFCS, which was a digital flight control system.
Yeah, okay.
Which was a vast improvement compared to the old analog system. So it took a lot away a lot of the bad tendencies that thing had. So I mean, the older Super Bowl guys really had to watch it, what they were doing. This thing it's basically it was like throwing in a mini flight control system out of a Hornet.
Was it what was departure spin? Was it like 27 steps like an F5?
There was a lot of steps. I was trying to remember the other day. I was like, I can't remember all these steps. See, ours were different because we had MFDs, so we would actually get a spin arrow.
Oh, no kidding. Just like the Hornet. Yeah.
And you'd have to, input the controls, this and that. But there was all these other steps that you had to watch out for. And it was no kidding. Like, if it came down to it, it was jettison the canopy.
Yeah.
And then, you would eject because the canopy, that was actually a real thing. If it was in a flat spin, the canopy would hover right above the airplane. Because they would get caught in the slipstream. So that was the danger of it. That's why you jettison the canopy first. Then
wow. That's pretty.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I guess I got it right.
Yeah. But I mean, that DFCS, the departure spins just vastly went down. You just didn't have to worry about it as much, which was great.
So did you do a lot of dissimilar?
We did. On the boat, we'd fight the Hornets quite a bit.
How'd that work out? Because everybody wants to know Tomcat versus Hornet. What are you taking?
So it depends. I mean, obviously, our one circle game was not the best because we just couldn't get low. We couldn't point the nose like a Hornet could. So our whole game plan was to try and get them into a rate type fight or get them down on the deck because we could monster them on the deck.
Could you do the double Immelman? Like once you get over the top, could you go over the top again? Yeah, like a Viper.
You could do that. And so, I mean, you'd see that, the Hornet putting his own nose up, and you're like, you just keep rocking it up, So you kind of use the thrust to your advantage, but the same token, they'd had so much more nose authority than we had. And probably the biggest problem with fighting the Tomcat when you got slow is the stabs would stall out.
What alpha? I mean, 30 alpha or something, or pretty low?
We didn't have true AOA. We had units, so it was kind of a useless number. So I think don't quote me. I want to say it was like maybe 24 AOA.
Is it a 9G jet?
It was 6.5 typically.
Oh,
if you
gentlemanly.
You could, yeah. So it depended on the fuel load, depending on the wing sweep and all that stuff, but we just basically targeted 6.5. There were little realms where you could get a little bit more, but it was just basically 6.5. Was all we targeted, and it would tell on you if you pulled more in the D and show a digital readout, and then you got to go lower your head and walk to maintenance.
So going back home behind the ship, I mean, obviously, we talked about it a minute ago. To get to Tomcats, you had to have pretty good grades. Why is that? I mean, is it a harder aircraft behind the boat?
It is. It's a much harder aircraft. And again, I lucked out because I had DFCS. Mm-hmm. Prior to that, the AFCS jets were a complete handful behind the boat. So, I mean, for instance, if they did a lineup correction, like they would dip their wings, line up, well, that nose would wander around like this and then eventually settle down.
So
So every line,
is that the two loose cougar thing at the beginning of Top Gun? Is that real?
that's extremely exaggerated, but I mean, you know, but no kidding, you would do, and we would have to practice it during FWPs. We would turn the DFCS off in case we had a failure with it. We had to make sure we could recover against the boat. But no kidding, you'd do a lineup and the nose would just sit there and it'd like
crap.
3 oscillations settle out, you know. So it was extreme handful for the earlier guys. We lucked out with the DFCS. It was much more stable. But the biggest problem is we had the big engines. I mean, you're just such minute throttle corrections.
They're like
I
on
mean,
the
you're
backside, throttle back.
Yeah, no, you're just barely moving those throttles because if you added it was nothing like the Hornet. I mean, I would say, you know, you're just barely walking those throttles and just made such a huge thrust difference. And you could easily get overpowered. But we did have DLC, which was great. It was called direct lift control. It's because Tomcat didn't have ailerons, had spoilers. So they would lift up a little bit. And you had a rolly wheel on the stick. And you go DLC up or DLC down. And that was huge just to kill the lift on the wing in case you're getting high.
Wow.
That type of thing.